Help Wanted 2 is finally here, and I streamed it for like a full day and got as many secrets as I could find. Now let's do a summary, shall we? I figured the best thing to do for a video this early is to fully cover the entire plot and lore of the game, and then go into some light speculation. If you've seen my Ruin video, you'll know what I mean by that when we get to it. But Slices, put on your aprons, and let's review some Peak, and I mean Peak. The game's only been out for like a day or two, but it's easily already my favorite FNAF game of all time. Oh, and obviously, spoiler warning ahead. In the opening cutscene, we're in a Fazbear employee orientation that has new audio but uses the same exact slides from FNAF 6. And that makes a lot of sense since once we get into the game, the hub for this game is the FNAF 6 pizzeria. Granted, there's been things added to it, but that definitely is the same location. We're playing as, well, that's not necessarily clear and we'll get into it in the speculation portion. We do, however, know that whoever we're playing as is the last human employee at the Pizzaplex. At least that's what the blog post from PlayStation and the head chef bot says.
Welcome to your new career in food service. It is a task so simple
hi.
a human can do it.
But the twist is, halfway through the game we get the Faz Wrench, that tool from Ruin that lets you do these wire puzzles. And if you do the wire puzzle that's in the corner of the hub room, you get access to the back room, where there's a Princess Quest 4 machine and an inhibitor that in Ruin would not let you take off your mask. Once you turn it off, Once you turn that off, you're able to realize you've been wearing the VANNI mask, or Vanny mask. This tool from Ruin allowed you to access the AR world and see things that weren't there. So, now that we're not wearing it, we get to see what the hub world actually looks like. And it's still the FNAF 6 pizzeria, but it's a lot closer to what we see in Security Breach, even with that hole. It's totaled, but notably, it's not falling apart as it would have been in Ruin. Another addition to this hub world now is Candy Cadet in the corner. If you've collected all the coins in the game, you get 2 stories. I have not collected all the coins in the game and there's no guide yet. But luckily, Mamakato on YouTube uploaded all the voice lines for Candy Cadet, so you can listen to them there, link in the description. Of the 2 stories, I'm wagering to bet that the first story is more filler than anything else. It tells of a family who missed out on the best opportunity in their lives, a $50 meal deal with a huge pizza, sides, and a toy. And then when they didn't buy it, they all died. Now, you could argue this is some kind of metaphor, but granted, keep in mind, this story takes like 3 or 4 coins to get. And when you first boot up the game, there are 3 or 4 coins scattered throughout the hub area. I think Steel Wool wanted to teach the player that we still would be collecting coins, but didn't want to reward us for doing basic looking around. Essentially, if you're going around the hub world, you see these very out in the open coins, which pretty much give you the full first story and then a snippet of the second story. I think that's Steel Wool's way of being like, hey, if you collect coins, you're going to get a really cool story, but you gotta work for the lore relevant one. That's my guess anyway. Mainly because the second story feels very lore relevant. It tells of a girl who followed a mysterious voice into the woods and was tricked by a witch. She gets away, but she's forever scarred. Later, she returns with the boy to then challenge that witch and get revenge. But she goes to sleep and says, I'll get the witch in the morning. Then the story ends with the oven door shutting, the witch finally getting her meal. This can be interpreted in a lot of ways. And whatever way you interpret it will definitely be speculation, but I'm afraid I'm going to forget to mention it later on in the video, so allow me to indulge in some light speculation going over this story. The main 2 ways I can see the story being explained is with Vanessa or Cassie. Hey, it's Editor Riley. It's like 4:30 a.m. I'm trying to get this video out. Anyway, upon editing this video, realized that I totally misinterpreted that story and that it still could be applied to either Vanessa or Cassie or even Michael Afton. Casey just shook the camera. Sorry about that. Are you literally? Bro. I missed a major part of the Candy Cadet story. Again, listen to the whole story if you want to hear it in the description. But the boy that she goes back in the woods with is a trap. She meets the boy at the front of the woods and he's like, oh, I'll help you find the witch. And he's the one that says to rest. Like, they go through the woods together, he leads her through the woods and he's like, hey, here's a house so you can rest and defeat the witch in the morning. And she's like, you're right, I should rest. And then the witch's oven door shuts. So yes, she's led astray by a voice as a girl, but when she goes back, she's led astray specifically by a boy, which feels like it could go still either to Vanessa and Cassie. Honestly, it feels like it's both, because Cassie makes sense for the second half of that story where she's led astray by a boy going into the woods and then gets trapped, which is literally just ruin, right? Like Cassie follows Gregory into the Pizzaplex and then gets trapped in the basement. But if we're going that way, the story doesn't track for Cassie going back for revenge, right? Like she was just going solely to go for Gregory. So the first half of the story doesn't make much sense for her. And with Vanessa, the first half of the story makes a lot of sense. We're like led astray by a voice and gets out, but is scarred. And that's her being led astray by Glitchtrap, and she gets out of Help Wanted, but part of her is now Vanny. So it feels like the first half is Vanessa and the second half is Cassie. I don't know. Those are just my first thoughts, but I was editing the video and I realized that since I misinterpreted the story so heavily, I just could not salvage that part of the video. It was just so wrong. Anyway, excuse the Snuggie. Enjoy the rest of the video. Again, it's still up to interpretation what this story means, and some people have even argued that it's actually about Michael Afton, so take it with a grain of salt, and it's worth looking into. A couple other things I want to mention about this hub room before moving on. For some reason, Glamrock Chica's hand is on the stage. I was looking at it and at first I was like, oh, it's Glamrock Bonnie because it's kind of purple, but Bonnie doesn't have those colored gloves, and his fingers are blue, very clearly blue. You look at this and it's like a whitish purple with green gloves. The closest hand I could match it to is Glamrock Chica, which then begs the question, why was she down here at all? Glamrock Chica so far has had no real lore significance, she's just been around. Even more so, this is her right hand, and in her ruined form, she has her right hand. She's missing her left arm, but to be fair, she has her endoskeleton right hand, so this could just be the casing. Regardless, what's going on with Chica that her hand is in here? And finally, in the corner of this room is a goddamn Nightmare plush. What the hell is the deal with it? This isn't the only one. There's another one hidden in that Princess Quest ending behind a column. I say that ending. We didn't get into it yet. I'll get into it when we're at that ending, but there is a Princess Quest ending with the Nightmare plush hidden behind a column. So like, what do they mean? Anyway, onto the lore that we get from the actual minigames. In food prep, we don't get that much lore, but it's worth noting that we only ever see Shattered Chica. We do not get all the way to Ruined Chica. Furthermore, we do get this very clean shot of the atrium, which to me tells us that at least part of this game is taking place during Security Breach. After all, it's not confirmed that the Security Breach Pizzaplex is completely burned down by the end of the game, because some endings that doesn't happen. However, it's definitely way worse than this by the time of Ruin, so we're at least taking place during or after Security Breach. In Backstage, we learn a few things. One, whoever we're playing as is the reason Roxy looks different from Security Breach to Ruin. This was not a design retcon. This was intentional. At some point, we go to Roxy and she begs us to fix her to make her look beautiful. But after 3 attempts, she gives up. She doesn't want us to try anymore. Nothing's working. So she just demands that we give her the mask. And lo and behold, that's that weird endoskeleton face that she has in Ruin. Really quick aside, I think we need to take a step back as a community and stop throwing around the word retcon so readily. For the past couple years, anytime something hasn't made sense with something previous, we've all just kind of assumed it's a retcon, but this is Five Nights at Freddy's. We've never had all the answers. I know I and many others saw Roxy in Ruin and assumed that her design was retconned so that it could be used with a Faz wrench, but in actuality, we just didn't have all the answers yet. In fact, it was someone under the influence of Glitchtrap who put that mask on her in the first place. How many retcons that we currently believe exist are just that, questions that we don't have the answers to yet. So I'm going to personally try to make an effort to stop assuming things are retcons when they don't make sense, and I hope you'll do the same. Anyway, we also finally know who's in that hidden daycare area, and we have its official name. In Arts and Crafts Loft, we're in that hidden area, so this is the daycare loft. But we see that Sun hides in here, possibly to prevent Moon from coming out. After all, he does not want us in here. He doesn't want us in here at all. Several times he's like, get out. So this probably wasn't Gregory's hideout, or if it was, he was roommates with Sun Moon, which could make for a really cute fanfiction to have like GGY and Sun Moon hanging out. Also, according to the names of the models in the stage menu, we finally have direct confirmation that the daycare attendants' names are Sun and Moon. Not Sunny Drop and Moon Drop, not daycare attendant. Sun and Moon. It is stated directly in the menu, which is good timing because I'm working on a cookbook lore video, and in the cookbook, they're referred to as Sunny Drop and Moon Drop, so thank God the game cleared that up before we got there. And now maybe the cookbook isn't as lore accurate as I thought. Anyway, in staff only, we learn of a few things. First, while Pigpatch and Lefty are shown during gameplay while we wear the mask, Scrap Baby isn't. We see Scrap Baby without wearing the mask at all. I really think that, plus the layout of this room and the fact that we're already in the FNAF 6 pizzeria, is really showing us that when we're practicing medical stuff on Helpy, we are in the FNAF 6 office that Michael is in during the gameplay of FNAF 6. After all, we've got the vents on either side, and granted this curtain is new, but I don't know, maybe we're facing backwards or something. But also, if this minigame is really happening, and so far we have no reason to believe it isn't, Scrap Baby is still around at least up until like mid-security breach, maybe after. And if Scrap Baby is still around, did Henry's fire not do anything? I don't know, it's really strange. That's gonna be a lot of theory stuff. Freddy also mentions that we're Fast Technician, but granted he can't see us. He literally says, and you're a Fast Technician, are you not? So he's guessing. However, we do get confirmation what this room in the Endomaze was used for. Specifically, it's teaching endoskeletons. Also giving us confirmation that the Glamrock endoskeletons are taught, not programmed. In other words, they're probably very similar, if not the same exact thing that the book mentions when they say that Fazbear created a whole line of mimic animatronics. They were trying to mass produce mimic endoskeletons that can just learn, not necessarily be programmed. In Fazcade, there's a few tidbits, including one of the biggest pieces of lore drops in the games. Now, take it with a grain of salt, because Carney could just be saying off pre-programmed lines. It's impossible to tell, but if it's true, this is huge. At some point several times in Fazerblast, Carney, this new animatronic, which we'll get into, says,
"Now, you look like you got kids.
What does that mean?
For the little one."
Am I Bonnie's dad or Cassie's dad?
And if we look like we have kids, presumably we'd be a parent. And there's like 3 parents in this franchise, and 2 of them are definitely dead. We'll get into that later. Bonkabon also has something important. In the hard mode version, not only do we hear Glitchtrap's voice when those creepy eyes show up in the holes, but in the bonus round, we literally see a puppet of Glitchtrap on a hand that looks like Glitchtrap come out. And when you hit it, that's when the whole tilt and code portion begins. Ticket Booth doesn't have much in the terms of lore, but it does raise some interesting questions. Namely, what the hell is this carousel? Realistically, it should have been in the daycare. Sun and Moon are the characters that are in it, but we never see a carousel in the daycare. Not only that, but there's the pumpkin, the lantern, and the hay bales, things that are usually at Fall Fest, the thing that we see in the Help Wanted 1 DLC and referenced a lot in Help Wanted 2. So if this carousel is from Fall Fest, not the daycare, then does that mean Sun and Moon are way older than we thought they were? And notably, one of the voice lines that Moon has is, "What makes you so special?" Which really makes you wonder who you're playing as. To me, initially, this read as a line of jealousy almost. At the time, I still thought we were playing as Vanessa, and we'll get into why I don't think so anymore. But when I thought that, this line read to me as jealousy. Essentially, Moon wanted to be Glitchtrap's servant, but Vanessa was chosen. What makes her so special? That's how it read at first to me, but honestly, the line could go a lot of ways. Captain Foxy's log ride doesn't give us a lot of lore, but it does show us this ride that was never fully open to the public. And finally, sister location. There is a lot here. First of all, the fact that we're going to the sister location bunker and sister location animatronics are here in an otherwise pretty real feeling game is insane, because we shouldn't be able to. At least not with roaming animatronics. After all, at the end of sister location, all of the animatronics shed their shell and become Ennard. But not only do we see Ennard, we see all the other animatronics, even Circus Baby. This shot of Circus Baby is the first time in the entire franchise that it's possible we're seeing actual Circus Baby do stuff. The only other time we've ever seen Circus Baby move in this entire franchise is this minigame and this Help Wanted minigame, which we know is a fake video game. Weirdness aside, as far as direct lore goes, there is a lot here. It's notable that one of the Office Night minigames, Office Puppet Master, has the subtitle, "This custom night is made just for you," implying that we're the Puppet Master. But the really packed one is Office Job Interview. This is where Circus Baby would like to play a game with you. You defend yourself against Scrap Babies 3 different times, and then Circus Baby herself shows up, offers you ice cream, which is the way that she kidnaps children, or the way she's programmed to anyway, but she doesn't. You just take the ice cream and eat it, and she says good job, essentially. And I want to point out a few things here. One, again, this is the exact way that she killed Elizabeth Afton, so that's gotta be notable. But second, this hand. Now, this could just be a gloved robotic hand meant to give out ice cream, and it probably is. At first, I thought this was Vanny's hand. After all, it's very fluid and it's wearing that white glove, but upon closer looking, the fingers don't match and the patch on the arm doesn't match either. In fact, the coloration matches Biddy Bab's pretty well, which makes sense. They're essentially an extension of Circus Baby. I don't think this is a Biddy Bab. Again, the fingers don't match. These fingers are very distinct. It's most likely this is just a gloved robotic hand, but I did want to put that out there. Also, notably, she has important voice lines as well. She also says, "What makes you so special?" And she mentioned that she likes being here. It makes her feel safe. Finally, this shows up in pretty much most minigames that have these TV screens. I know it shows up in the Endo Daycare as well, but occasionally, and you see it a lot in Sister Location, whenever these monitors flicker, sometimes it'll say they are watching in the flickering. Now onto the endings. On a normal playthrough, you unlock these Fazbots throughout the game. Occasionally, when you beat enough minigames, you unlock essentially a animatronic Fazbear Transformer doll. It's really cool, and you get this like 80s styled ad for all of them, which teases all four, two of their secret friends, and that they can all combine into one bot. And I don't have to tell you why all of the animatronics combining into one thing is a red flag and something we definitely need to look into.
In case that you're new here, because a new game came out and you actually don't know, several times in this franchise, like 5 souls combine into one, or 5 things combine into one. This is 6 technically, but it's still important to recognize, like, Molten Freddy is literally all the Funtime animatronics merged into one. It's a big theme in this franchise.
Eventually, you learn these 2 mysterious friends are Fredbear and the Puppet. When you unlock all of them, you also unlock the combined bot, and upon collecting it, you get the neutral ending. You're transported to the ruined pizzeria again, but this time there's a charging station on the stage, and Glitchtrap's hand comes out, going to open it. We then cut to several of the Nightmare staff bots pretty much surrounding and closing in on us, and then we cut to static, implying death. But we see the starting up screen we see at the beginning of Security Breach, this time for a staff bot. And through our eyes, we see Maskbot from Ruin, giving the VA and an eye mask, or Vanny mask, to Cassie, beginning that whole game. It's a really cool sequence, and also, we finally get a new updated model for Cassie, one that's meant to be seen by the player, and she looks really cute, and it's way better than the model that wasn't necessarily meant to be shown in Ruin, but was present. That is a crazy ending, but it's not the craziest. There are 2 endings in this game, and the other ending involves that Princess Quest machine I mentioned, and a whole other side to this game that we didn't get into yet. Occasionally, when you beat a minigame, Mystic Hippo, whether or not you're playing on PSVR 2 or otherwise, will give you a hint. She'll mention there's some graffiti somewhere in the lobby, and it'll give you a hint into a minigame you just played. Now, Mystic Hippo is a queen and we love her, but these hints are incredibly cryptic at times, so I'm going to go through all of them for you just now in case that if you're playing on your own, this can serve as a guide on how to get these secrets. This graffiti I think is the most straightforward, but someone in chat still had to solve it for me because I couldn't figure it out. It's tilt Bonkabon backwards. Now, when you're playing Bonkabon in the hard mode and you get that tilt sequence, you have to punch in a code with wires. This hint is telling you, punch in that code backwards. And if you do, once it closes, Glitchtrap's hand comes out of one of the holes, presenting a voodoo doll, or something that looks, I keep saying voodoo doll. It kind of looks like a stereotypical voodoo doll. I don't know what it is. It's like a patchwork doll with a Bonnie mask. And once you collect it, notably, this is the only one that does this, as far as I'm aware, you get an achievement that says, "Remember Jeremy, collect a memory." That feels super important. This next graffiti is hinting to go back to the Sister Location office level with Ballora. If you do, and I did this on accident the first time, the drawer that's locked in Every Other Night is unlocked, allowing you to access the keypad from Custom Night of Sister Location. If you punch in that same code, 1983, it then gives you the Puppet Masked plushie, which has huge implications and could be implying that Charlie dies in 1983, which is interesting and something to think about. But regardless, that's cool. The next graffiti hints at shooting all of the rockets in Phaser Blast, specifically the one in the first, Western, and FNAF 1 levels. If you do all that and beat the FNAF 2 level, the things that you've knocked over by shooting the rockets light everything on fire and it burns to the ground, which unlocks the FNAF 3 Phaser Blast minigame. The FNAF 3 Phaser Blast minigame basically has you do a 1v1 with Springtrap, or a cardboard cutout of him. And if you defeat him, he does a weird jump scare for you, and then you unlock the Freddy plushie. The next graffiti is a hint for food prep, where in the 3rd level, you have to throw out every Chica-based food product. That's the Chica Lemon Bar, the Chica Pink Lemonade, the Chica smoothie, and something I forgot about, Chica Chowder, over on the menu. If you throw out all 4 of those, you get Chica's plushie. This hint of Helpy being hit several times, at first I thought was, okay, we'll go into this was before like I knew that it linked up to the last minigame you played, so I was trying to figure out like where we interact with Helpy. I went to the med bay, and there's a big star right on his chest that looks like an impact frame, so I tried to solve it myself.
Torture Helpy. I don't know if this is doing it, guys.
Turns out this is just a hint for the Foxy log flume to shoot all 3 Helpies. But specifically, in each of those sequences, there is a very hard to see star that you also need to shoot. Here, here, and here. And then at the end, one last one on the cake. If you shoot all 4 of those, the ride continues to this strange greenish lake with a box. And in that box is the Foxy plushie. No, not this box, don't worry. And finally, in what I think is the most cryptic hint, this graffiti, which I had no idea what it meant. Someone just had to straight up tell me in chat. But this means go to Fizzy Faz Night 3 where there's a can of Soda-Roni and make the tombstone, or is it the graveyard? I forget exactly. It's a drink where you add every flavor except for salt because it's not available yet, and then pour the Soda-Roni in to top it off. Then put it in the chute, turn off power, and trash it. I never would have figured that out. And like, it makes sense in retrospect, but it didn't make sense at the time. If you do all of that, you get the golden Freddy plushie, which is interesting that the tombstone hint gives you the golden Freddy plushie. Once you collect all of these plushies, Mystic Hippo gives you this glitched coin, which then allows you to play Princess Quest. Now, this is Princess Quest 4. It's different from the others, but it's still the same idea. We're the princess, we get a sword from the old guy, and now we actually are able to teleport as well. We go through a couple levels inside the castle, and then we find ourselves playing the game. Once we hit ourselves as the princess, we're transported into Princess Quest. And this is, I think, the coolest moment in all of modern FNAF. Maybe all of FNAF. It felt honestly cooler than Henry's speech to me. I don't know if that's the hype talking, but it was so cool to be in Princess Quest. This minigame we've played for like 5 years now. We're in Princess Quest and we're the princess. You go through, you go deeper, and then you go outside to a tombstone puzzle, the same that you see previously in Princess Quest, but this time the tombstones are not only numbered, but labeled. Those plushies we've collected throughout the game are sitting at each of the tombstones, the same tombstones every time. If you light all 6 tombstones, the door opens. But if you light them in the correct numbered order of the tombstones, you unlock a secret basement area where you can get a Bonnie mask. On collection, it says, "This feels oddly familiar," or something similar. Again, I played this game like twice and I'm trying to make this video very, the exact wording might be different. Then when you go through the door, you approach that same old man. He gives you the Vanny mask and says, "This feels like a fair trade," and he also gives you the glitch trap plushie. And then, on the surface, the most confusing sequence I've ever seen in a FNAF game happens. Within Princess Quest, the sister location elevator appears. We go inside and it's new. There's now a ruin wire puzzle, so either they're trying to establish this has always been a thing, but that would be a retcon, so again, I'm trying to not assume retcons, or this is a new sister location elevator. Regardless, it starts moving and falls apart, and you're actually inside a giant crane machine with Vanny playing. Moon comes up, calls you a naughty boy, takes the glitch trap plushie and tosses him aside. Then Vanny shows glitch trap to you, seemingly crushes him in her hands, and walks away, leaving us to rot in there. Yeah, it's weird, but it's also really cool. So that's all the lore we directly get, except for the Mystic Hippo minigame. I really don't know what that is yet, and I haven't found good, clean footage of it yet, so I don't know. I don't have a PSVR 2. I'm not made of money. So what can we speculate about this game? I want to start with really concrete theories that will be useful for opening up discussion. For the stuff that's more out there, expect that in the coming weeks. To start off, when does this game take place in the timeline? Well, when it comes to timeline placement, I think it's pretty clear. And the main reason for it is that second Roxy makeover minigame I talked about. In it, we the player are giving a makeover for Shattered Roxy. This is the design at the end of Security Breach. However, after she gets frustrated of nothing working, she just demands that we give her the mask. Said mask being that strange redesign from Ruin. This minigame, I think, makes such a solid case that Help Wanted 2 takes place during and after Security Breach, but before Ruin. In case you aren't convinced from that, consider what else we see in the game. We see several instances of the Security Breach animatronics. I'm talking Glamrock Chica, Glamrock Freddy, Roxanne Wolf. Strangely, no Montgomery Gator at all ever, which is really strange to me. And we get to see shattered forms of Chica, Roxy. We even see a shattered Music Man, which has never been seen before. But as far as I can find, the only things from Ruin we see are the Vanny mask, the Faz Wrench, the thing that we give Roxy, and the scene at the end of the game. The Vanny Mask and the Faz Wrench existed before Ruin. The thing we give Roxy allows Ruin to make sense, and the scene at the end of the game happens at the end of the game. I think this game realistically has to take place during and after Security Breach and right up until the beginning of Ruin, except for one issue: sister location. I still don't have a good explanation for why these animatronics are moving around. Now, I could explain the location. That kind of makes sense to me. After all, you have reason to argue that the FNAF 6 location and the sister location bunker are pretty close, like proximity-wise. And I'll go way deeper into that later on in coming weeks as I'm doing theories for it. But as far as why the animatronics are moving around post-Ennard, I really don't have a good explanation for it. Besides, I don't know, they got new endoskeletons. But realistically, any deeper into that discussion is going to be way too speculative to be useful for today. So next, who are we playing as? And that's up for a much bigger debate, but I know where I currently stand on it. I think our best bet for who the player is actually Cassie's dad. For those who don't know, in Ruin, Cassie, our player character, constantly refers to her dad, who used to be a Faz technician. It's ambiguous where he's ended up now, but we do know that his favorite animatronic was Bonnie. He knew about what happened to Glamrock Bonnie, and presumably he was looking into it. So if we can assume those things about them, which granted is speculation, then we have someone who we don't know much about, but whose identity was recently teased at, and now we have someone who fits that bill. A player essentially going through the Pizzaplex trying to find what's going on. We know he definitely had a Faz Wrench, and the Vanny Mask is said to be used by Faz technicians, something we know that he was. For some supporting evidence that doesn't prove it but helps build the case, look into how we're referred to throughout the game. Carney, this strange new animatronic that I mentioned earlier, constantly in most of the Fazer Blast minigames says, "You look like you have kids, try to win a prize for one of them." Which, I mean, we only know like 3 parents in this series, and it's definitely not William or Henry. Glamrock Freddy assumes that we're a Faz technician, but granted he can't see us, and Mystic Hippo, Moon, and Circus Baby all ask us, what makes you so special? Why do we, some random technician, think that we can fix what's going on here? What makes us so special? But I'm going to take it one step further, and this is really dipping into speculation, so take it with a grain of salt. But bake with me for a second. I think the theories were right. I think Cassie's dad is the Bonnie masked bully in the FNAF 4 minigame cutscenes, the one back from the Bite of 83. That's what makes him so special. He also mourns his actions just like Michael, and he might have been keeping up with Fazbear this whole time to see what was going on. That's why this mask in the Princess Quest ending feels so familiar. One thing I forgot to mention in the other half of this recording, this could also explain why we don't see Montgomery Gator. After all, if we are playing as Cassie's dad, who loves Bonnie and knows that probably Monty was the one to do him in, he might just not like Montgomery Gator, and that's why none of the minigames have us interacting with Montgomery Gator. Why would he want to? He killed Bonnie. I do, however, think that the neutral ending where we see Glitchtrap return is the intended fully canon ending. Cause honestly, what a good narrative tragic tale. A father just trying to do what's best and maybe even trying to make up for some sins he did in the past. Gets caught up in something way bigger than him. Overwhelmed by odds he couldn't predict, he's forced to watch his own daughter fall down the same rabbit hole that he did. Maybe Cassie's dad being in the system is what will eventually allow Cassie to break free, but until then he's just a helpless spectator. And I do think that this revelation, if true, recontextualizes what Cassie says in Ruin. Whenever Cassie is talking about her items, specifically character merchandise, she always uses like the third person or refers to them as it or he or she. They're always objects. With Monty, it's hard to look at. Nightmares, it's from that old headset game. Even Bonnie, Dad wouldn't tell me why they replaced Bonnie. But the only time she addresses something directly is the Bonnie mask. When she collects this mask, the mask that her dad probably still had, after all, it feels familiar, even when he's so deep in Princess Quest, and a mask that he probably has a lot of tragedy for. When she collects it, she looks at it and says, "What happened to you?" She's not asking about the Bonnie event. After all, there's a possibility during Ruin she learned what happened to Bonnie. She's asking why her father went to work one day and never returned. Not even during her birthday. What happened to Cassie's dad? Finally, what the hell is with these plushies and this weird ass ending? Well, it's not rocket science to state that these plushies are most likely a representation of the victims of William Afton, at least the first ones. It makes a lot of sense. It tracks for all of the missing child incident kids and Charlotte. What I think is relevant though is the achievement you get for when collecting the Bonnie plush. Remember Jeremy. With the tag retrieve a memory. Not sure what that's about, but maybe it's relating the fact that the bullies from this scene knew the kids that were killed. Maybe that's why they were bullying the crying child in the first place. I don't know. Like I said, speculation. Another thing worth noting is this final puzzle. We are literally handed numbered tombstones that are labeled with plushies, and it's always this order, and in the correct order is the only time you unlock the Bonnie mask. I think this game is telling us the correct order of these deaths were the missing child incident kids, starting with Chica and ending with Golden Freddy, Susie to Cassidy, and then Charlie, which I grant you doesn't make a lot of sense. Henry says, a wound first inflicted on me. This game links 1983 with Charlie, but this tombstone puzzle to me feels so concrete. And then the ending itself, I think is a bit more self-explanatory than people are giving it credit for. A lot of people have been confused because it seems like Vanny is killing Glitchtrap, and that's a valid interpretation, but I don't see it as Vanny killing Glitchtrap. After all, if she's killing Glitchtrap, why would she still be Vanny? Wouldn't Vanessa want to kill Glitchtrap? To me, this is how I see this ending. We, as probably Cassie's dad, have been hunting down what's really going on at the Pizzaplex, and we're in deep. We're so deep into the Vanny AR mask that we're having trouble differentiating what's real. And then we get to the Princess Quest machine where we get so involved, we go inside of the Princess Quest machine, probably just mentally, and when we are as deep in the rabbit hole as it possibly can get, we're also the most exposed. And it's then that Vanny finds us. The achievement for this ending is, quote, consequences, with the subtitles, system threats found, repair complete. Vanny found us in the system, the threat, the thing trying to route out Glitchtrap from the Pizzaplex. She makes us give the plushie of Glitchtrap back, and she shows Glitchtrap what a good job she's done routing out the threat. Then she takes Glitchtrap with her and leaves, leaving us to rot in this prison she's created. And if this is true, I'm starting to think the Princess Quest ending from Security Breach isn't canon. In Ruin, we see the Princess Quest 3 machine toppled over with a sword through it. And for a while, I was like, okay, Princess Quest definitely happened because Princess Quest 3 has been beaten and Vanny's nowhere to be found. But there's a Princess Quest 4 and Vanny is still around. And Cassie's dad was the only one we've known to be in the AR world and hold Princess Quest's sword. So it's possible that after Security Breach, Princess Quest 3 does get beaten, but not by Gregory, by Cassie's dad. And then he goes further in. Finally, I think this game is really nailing home that Glitchtrap is the Mimic 1 program within the AR or VR or virtual world. Essentially the Mimic 1 program that has been trained using Help Wanted, learning all of the misdeeds of Fazbear. And that Vanny's ultimate goal is to bring Glitchtrap into the real world into a suitable body. Although, I do want to still use the term Glitchtrap, only because we have a physical endo in the real world called the Mimic. And calling this the Mimic and calling this the Mimic, I think will just get kind of confusing. So for now, until they are confirmed to be merged in the real world, I'll be referring to this is the Mimic and this is Glitchtrap, even though they're two halves of the same coin, essentially. Hopefully by the next game, Glitchtrap is finally in this endoskeleton, so I can just call it the Mimic. And that's everything I can think to mention that I found has been found before. At least everything that isn't cut content. I don't want to cover that necessarily because I don't think cut content is meaningful, really. It was cut for a reason after all. I am in love with this game so far, and I will be continuing to play it. In fact, on Monday, at my normal stream time, I will be playing it with chat fully enabled, and we're just gonna turn up the brightness, have spoilers going crazy, and try to dig for as much other stuff as we can find. So I hope I'll see you there. But now that we know generally what the game is about, how wrong was I? If you want to find out, my last prediction is right here, and I was pretty wrong. I think the only thing I got right was that the Vanny mask in some way will enable hard mode. A huge shout out to the best channel members, the Dough Risers, and until next time, as always, stay toasty, slices.